Again, broker involvement program is actually a great tool that NAR invented to get our messages across to our legislators. It was used mainly for federal purposes, or to get to our legislators on the federal level, but we are also using it currently for state as well as county issues. The one good thing about the broker involvement program is that the email comes from the broker or under the broker's email address to their agents, and it's found that most agents will respond to a broker's email rather than something that's coming directly from NAR or even HAR. So agents would tend to read those more and open those emails first, and of course if they get that, then they'll get the message. What we've been using the broker involvement program for is for important messages like on the state level, the general excise tax increase. We sent that message out to our members and we had a great response. We had over 1,100 responses, and I think we had a great impact on shutting down the general excise tax for this session. We also had an impact, for example, on the UPL issue, or the unauthorized practice of law, and I think we shut down the Supreme Court's website or that email address, and we got that changed. So you can see that with numbers and with the messages across to our legislators and people that are in position of power, that we can make a difference if we join up in numbers, and that's what the broker involvement program does. So what we should do is get more of our brokers involved. If your brokers out there are not signed up to the broker involvement program, please do so. For agents, if your broker is not on that program, please advise them that you want them to sign up to the program. Another good thing to use that for is a tool with your clients and your customers. I use it personally to send messages to my constituents, my clients, on issues like the general excise tax, especially business clients. They wanted to know about that, and they wanted to also respond easily to their legislators rather than sitting down and writing a letter to them. This is so simple. I forwarded the email to them. They were able to write their own message on there, and 2 clicks and it was sent. So that's a great tool to use for business purposes as well as to communicate with our legislators. You don't always have to agree with NAR's message or even HR's message to use the broker involvement program. It's just a tool to use, and I think it's great to have this easy 2-click tool that members can have at their disposal to voice their opinions to their legislators. It's just a communication thing. So for the question out there as to whether or not they agree to the message that's being sent, you don't have to agree, and in fact you're not going to agree all the time. And what the brokers can do is just send an email to their agents in the office saying that I don't necessarily agree with this issue, but you can vote on it and send this out if you want to. As far as using it as a tool for their clients also, I mean, you don't expect that all of your clients are going to like the message that's being sent, but again, it's a great tool to use. If they're concerned about the issue, they can click on it, they can rewrite the message the way that they want to, and it's a very easy tool. 2 clicks and the message is sent. So I think it's a great tool to put in the hands of our members and the realtors in your office. So I would encourage everybody to sign up to the program. Before we go over the reasons behind the calls to action and the ones that are going to be coming out shortly, I think realtors need to understand where this is all coming from. It's compelling. When we went to Washington D.C. and talked to the senators up there, we found out that there's actually some serious business that's going on. The federal government is faced with a $14 trillion deficit. $14 trillion, what does that mean? That $1 trillion is like something that we don't even comprehend. The state level, we can understand the state is closer to a $1 billion budget deficit, or a little bit over $1 billion budget deficit. Now, to put that in perspective, $1 trillion is 1,000 billions. So a $14 trillion deficit is basically a 14,000 times deficit more than what we're faced with in the state. So it is a compelling number, and that's why our legislators in Washington, D.C. have a grave task ahead of them to solve this problem. Knowing that, you can understand now that, you know, they need to cut expenses. Everything is being looked at. Everything that we know of today that was sacred, for example, like the mortgage interest deduction, may not be there because they have this $14 trillion deficit that they have to deal with. So knowing that everything is on the table, that homeownership rights to the mortgage interest deduction can be at stake, I think we as realtors need to speak out for the homeowners. We need to protect that interest. We need to be vigilant of the fact that things that we know sacred today, like the mortgage interest deduction, may not be there. And the reason it may not be there is that Congress is faced with this big deficit that they have to solve. They are running into a deficit of over $1 trillion. I mean, adding to the deficit by $1 trillion per year. So you know, they just have this massive amount of money that they have to pay back. Now, to understand this even in a bold sense, you know, one of the senators explained to us that if we paid back $100 per second, and which would come out to $8,640,000 per day, it would still take us 317 years to just pay back $1 trillion. That would mean that it would be 4,755 years to pay back the debt. Okay, so knowing that, I think we can understand that the problem is a grave one, and that it's a serious problem, and you can understand why we're having this conversation in the legislative arena today. So what you can do is actually go to NAR's site at realtoractioncenter.com, and you can get more information about the mortgage interest deduction problem or the issue at hand. There's also other things there like GSC reform, flood insurance, and a whole myriad of issues that NAR is tracking. You can also sign up to the broker involvement program through that site. So again, it's realtoractioncenter.com.